Only a few months into the new year, the MMA scene is already ablaze with several brutal knockouts, from perfectly timed head kicks to jaw-dropping strikes. In today's video, we'll be listing 10 fighters whose knockouts claimed the octagon in 2024. Let's jump right in.
Give me that crown, get in my way, you need to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now.
As the first Chinese light heavyweight contender at the UFC, Zong Mong had a lot of hopes pegged on him. And while you might disagree, the way I see it, he didn't just live up to them. He surpassed them, momentarily compromised by an eye poke from Ribeiro. The Mountain Tiger sent his opponent sprawling to the canvas with a 3-punch combo. Mind you, this finish came only 2 minutes into the first round and was followed by a few vicious yet unnecessary hammer fists to get the referee to call the fight off. Now, if you've been keeping up with the predictions, you'd know that the odds were in the Gorilla's favor. Safe to say, Zong made the odds makers eat their words for positioning him as someone whose victories were all rooted in weaker competition. However, I do think he's jumping the gun and calling out Alex Pereira for UFC 300. Let's not fly too close to the sun, buddy. Speaking of living up to the hype, Danny Barlow's left hand came in handy yet again at UFC 298. The southpaw sent Quinlan down for the count with a fury of strikes early in the third round. There were a few minutes in the middle of this fight where fans felt Quinlan couldn't make a comeback. With the amount of damage he'd sustained to his eye early on, he never really stood a chance. Eventually, and with both of Quinlan's eyes closed, the referee had to step in for the stoppage. According to a post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, Barlow had broken both his legendary left arm and hand in the first round.
Man broke my left hand too, so it's good, man. We still got the job done with the left. Hey,
you broke your arm when?
the first round. Yeah.
It's a wonder he was able to trail Quinlan around the octagon the way he did. Say what you will, but the Memphian truly is in for a bright future. Coming in at number 8, Marcus's knockout of Bolaños also sent shockwaves through the arena. For the most part, the fighters were engaged in a stand-up exchange, failing to land significant shots. However, Magny eventually got the upper hand and secured a takedown 2 minutes into the match. The takedown was rather short-lived as Bolaños jumped back to his feet. Similarly, Magny's second attempt at sending him to the canvas would have failed as well, were it not for a precise 3-punch combo. These punches disoriented Gaston enough for Marcus to achieve another takedown. This one was marked by a barrage of ground strikes as well. The referee finally stepped in at the 3:29 mark of the second round, after Bolaños was sent crashing into the cage with a spinning wheel kick to the jaw. With a record of 4-0, he's really made a mark since his UFC debut in August of 2023. After his previous bout against Trey Ogden was ruled a no contest, nobody was expecting Nicholas to win against Nolan with his 6-1-0 record. But to everyone's surprise, he countered each of the big train strikes flawlessly, eventually flooring the southpaw at 1 minute 3 seconds mark in the very first round with a well-timed counter right hand. Turns out Nicholas was not expecting an easy win either. In a post-fight interview, he revealed he knew the fight was going to be hard when he first saw his opponent in the elevator beforehand.
Yeah, I knew that would be a very hard fight because Tom Nolan is a killer. He has a finish rate so high and he's a killer, I knew.
The predictions were also mostly in Nolan's favor, especially on account of his height, which experts believe helped keep his opponents at a distance. With that 63-second upset definitely goes to show that we need to take predictions with a grain of salt and more. Adding to the list of jaw-dropping knockouts, we have Radke's win against Gilbert Urbina at UFC Fight Night 235. The fight initially didn't seem to be going anywhere, but it all changed when Charles sent Gilbert reeling to the mat only a few minutes into the first round. At the 4-minute 47 mark, moments before the first round was to end, Radke secured another knockdown, finally prompting the referee to step in and call an end to the fight. With this win, Chuck Buffalo thinks he's going to make it big in the 170-pound division, warning the likes of Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards to watch out. 2024 is also proving to be a promising year for Carlos Prates. Despite being a veteran, Giles couldn't withstand Carlos's piston left hand and was in a heap on the mat in the second round at UFC Vegas 86. In Carlos's case, odds makers were right to back him. Giles might be his senior by a year, but Prates isn't called the Nightmare for nothing. The experts were right to point out that his kickboxing career will set him apart from most debuting fighters. Keep in mind that his MMA career also spans back to 2012. He's definitely not a rookie, and as far as I'm concerned, I viewed him as a promising fighter since he first punched his way into the UFC via the promotion's Contender Series. Circling back to upsets that disappointed odds makers, we've Mike Malot's defeat at the hands of Neil Magny at UFC 297. The scales tipped in Malot's favor initially, but 3.5 rounds in, Neil had the fight to his name with a TKO. Pulling a few pages out of Ian Gary's playbook, the young gun employed leg kicks against the Haitian sensation and had him against the cage for a good portion of the fight. But things took a drastic turn once the two fighters were on the mat. Don't get me wrong, Mike still had control of Neil in the final moments, but sadly his exertion got the best of him. This fight, as many of you know, was a gatekeeper fight intended to help Mike climb through the ranks to take on stronger fighters. However, Neil finessed Malot, sending him back to the list of fringe contenders. UFC Vegas 84 became what they'd call a night to remember after Bruno Ferreira upset Phil Hawes in the first round. Using a combo of a flying knee and a left-hand jab, Bruno stunned fans by sending Hawes reeling to the canvas. He then put the fighter to sleep with 3 additional shots, forcing the referee to stop the contest at the 4-minute 55 mark. I don't know about you, but the way the two kept meeting each other's combos, it was impossible to know which way the wind would blow. Fortunately for Ferreira, he found his footing in the dying moments. But of course, he didn't admit to it. Speaking after the fight, he explained how he had the whole thing mapped out, and he knew he'd be able to knock Phil down. Debatable, but I'm going to let him have that moment. Gather round, everyone. Looks like we've a new featherweight champion on the scene. I'm talking about none other than Ilia Tora, who upset Volkanovski at UFC 298 with a brutal right hook. Well, it didn't take him one round like he'd hoped. The 3-minute 32 knockout in the second round wasn't bad at all. It's definitely earned him a lot of respect among his peers. Everyone from Belal Muhammad to Rampage Jackson was all praises for him, pointing out how he'd fought a good and calculated fight. It's amazing to see champs give credit where it's due. It's really a breath of fresh air in a community that's always in the news for trash talk, if you ask me. Like Nicholas Mata, Magomed Nurmagomedov also had a score to settle because of the no contest he received due to an illegal knee in October of 2023 at UFC 294. And boy, did he get his redemption. The Russian Terror scored a second-round knockout using a combination of his ruthless right hand and a fury of punches. Seeing that this is his 11th victory in the UFC, I think the title bout he's been contending for might finally materialize this year. I wish him and his future opponents all the luck in the world, because he's truly a force to be reckoned with. That's a wrap. Whose technique stood out to you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Pummel that like button and subscribe for more.